home countries through ad hoc kind of crisis-related reintegration programs runs against the labor market realities that prompted them to migrate in the first place. And this thing, we have also seen the same kind of testimonies from the video that WOREC team has just shown us. And in the case of women, reintegration can even mean a process of disempowerment in some cases. To elaborate it much more, what I would like to say is foreign employment and migration policies of the country of origin tend to be political strategies to relieve unemployment and underemployment pressures that the country is facing. So the migration is in fact the result of process of structural transformation leading to specific employment deficits in different sectors. So the idea is the idea that migrant workers who return to their home countries can be easily reintegrated is a false concept, because while such countries are still facing important employment challenges, fails to account for structural labor market dynamism. So we need to keep consider that in our mind when we are making any kind of economic reintegration packages or even reintegration as a whole. And the realities of the country of country of origin. Do we have a sufficient job employment opportunity? Do we have sufficient decent working condition within the country? Do we have a lot of laws relating to right to employment, recognitions of women's work, a lot of things, and come to a place when we are talking about reintegration of returning migrant women's work especially. So in country of origin, in context in which women employment is frowned upon, for example, we have very low female labor participation, labor force participation. If we take the example of Nepal, it's only 26% female are in labor force participation, and very few formal employment options. For example, in Nepal, it's 90.5% of women employment are in informal sector as per the labor force survey. So we can understand when lots of women are not even in the labor market, and most of them are like 90% of them are in informal economy, informal sector, that will have a lot of decent work deficit. Their right to employment, a lot of labor rights will be curtailed. So when we are talking about reintegration programs, and when we are talking about holistic and sustainable reintegration program, these all policies need to be fixed before we are coming up with any kind of agenda or any kind of program on reintegration. So that is one of the important thing that I would like to highlight here.
Thank you, Sandhya. It's so nice, kind of putting this, like, if we really want to kind of even to talk about reintegration, there are a lot of policies which are creating, which are uprooting women needs to be fixed before. Right? Without that, we don't see even the chance that, okay, kind of whole term reintegration can be used, and no matter what kind of economical packages we offer, that is not going to make that profound kind of help or impact on women's life. Okay, thank you very much, Sandhya ji. Now I will move to GAPW, actually, kind of to Bandana, International Coordinator, Global Alliance Against Trafficking. And then we together, we are working since, I guess, last kind of more than 25 years, and then kind of talking and then bringing out the issue. And then on this, especially, we have done together with kind of GAPW Secretariat has coordinated and then done the research, feminist participatory action research in India and in Bangladesh, in Nepal, including other countries, right? So kind of this Bandana will detail it out. And then I really want to request Bandana to focus on what exactly we see are hindering the whole reintegration process, or because why I'm doing like this, reintegration process, but because I don't even believe on the term reintegration, right? So this is one of my issue which I am constantly I'm raising this. So Bandana, floor is yours, and then please, up to 5 minutes, as I said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Renu. Yeah, thank you, Renu. Our connection is a little bit shaky today, so if it gets bad, then I will switch off the camera. So yes, as you, I completely agree with what you have been saying, and what also, the issues that Sandhya raised, and when Lubaji also set the context. So I think we are all in agreement, and we are talking about the same challenges. So this feminist participatory action research that was concluded recently in 4 South Asian countries, Nepal, Bangladesh, India, and Sri Lanka, is part of a larger program that we are coordinating in different parts of the world. So similar researches have been going on, and in some parts have been concluded. So on the Southeast Asia and Europe corridor, and there we are looking both at countries of origin as well as countries of destination. And then we are also, we concluded in 5 different countries of Latin America, looking again at trafficked women as well as migrant women, both in countries of destination and in countries of origin. So as you pointed out, Renu, like we are all, we both are getting quite elderly now. We are the senior citizens, and we have been looking at these issues for such a long time. Unfortunately, there is nothing new and nothing very positive to report. So then the question is, why did we do, since there is nothing new, what was the rationale behind doing this research? The rationale is, once again, because more and more, as even though we don't see much positive changes, we see that there is, at the policy level, as you pointed out already, in the GCM, one of the objectives is looking at dignified return and readmission and the sustainable reintegration. So the question is, are these just words? And why are we using these words? If, as Sandhya pointed out, the fundamental thing is looking at the situation of work and looking at the working conditions. So what is it that is prompting women to leave? Obviously, there are there are issues in the labor market, there are unemployment issues. And if our countries are taking a decision, a policy decision, to send workers, including women workers, to temporary precarious jobs, which a very little labor rights protection is there, then what responsibilities at both ends the states are taking? Because both ends are connected. It's not only a question of countries of origin, but it's also a question of working conditions in countries of destination, and what are we being able to do. So this research is throwing out, the findings. As I said, anybody who is working for even 3 or 4 years would not find the findings new. The question is the action part. And the action part is, we need to go beyond just rhetoric, beyond just talking. We need to be, and that's where the main thing is, what the findings or the recommendations that have come from the women are very, very strong. And definitely the first thing I'm now focusing on the 4 South Asian countries, and the key recommendations are in the areas of employment and social security. So creating gender responsive employment guarantee schemes and making cash transfers, reducing the costs of sending remittances, making low or zero interest loans available to all migrants, creating social security and insurance programs, all these, this whole issue, a number of issues with regard to employment and social security. Second, as you have already pointed out, Renu, the stigma issue, because this is an added thing that women are facing upon return. So on one hand, the policy is pushing women actually, and also the families are pressurizing women to go, because many of the male members of the family do not also have employment. At the same time, it's the same society is actually pushing, creating stigma towards women. So that's another issue, the social listing. And then the third issue is bridging information gaps. So we do not, unfortunately, with so much of data, there are still information gaps. And then finally, justice and reparation. So taking urgent steps to help returning migrant workers to claim their wages. I believe we have a colleague from MFA who would be speaking later today. So MFA is coordinating a large campaign, the wage theft campaign against wage theft, and that is a major issue. So, claiming wages and then making complaints and redressal mechanisms accessible to all migrant workers and making counseling services available also. So these are some of the key recommendations that have come, and I did it very quickly, just compressing some of the thing. And if people look at the collated research report, then there are specific recommendations that have come and specific findings that have come. So I will stop here, Renu.
Thank you, Bandana. Thank you very much for kind of bringing out all points, what we discussed, and then what we came out of the research. And then one thing I really think that, okay, findings are not new, right? We have been discussing, but the major point is the action, kind of how to take those things forward, from the civil society group as a women rights organization, and at the same time states, and then organizations, UN organizations like ILO, IOM, and then also kind of collective effort, kind of whatever we are talking, not to keep things rhetoric, just to kind of how to make things forward and then take into the action. All right, thank you very much, Bandana, for bringing this out. And then friends, this is our first round, so we will be discussing second round as well. I hope our friend from MFA is here. Alexei, are you here? Friends, could you find her? If not, then yeah, I got the message that Savita is trying, but kind of still then, can I request Savita? Savita, you were involved in research, and then very kind of just 2 weeks back in preparation to IMRF, we did a national level discussion with returning migrant women workers as well, and as a program officer, and then as a person who really works on the ground, kind of, yeah, I will be really, really happy to give you the floor, and then requesting, like, could you highlight, what were the real issues which came out from women when we talk about reintegration. Besides, we heard their voice, but all you have compiled those. So yeah, Savita, yeah, and then you brought out in a beautiful postcard as well, which unfortunately due to my luggage got lost, I have not been able to distribute here till now. So yeah, Savita, floor is yours.
Thank you so.
I'm giving you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Renu Didi, for giving me this pleasure to share some of the experience that I'm working for past half a year. So what WOREC as an organization which is directly working with the community women, especially with the people who are being marginalized, what we believe is no one is voiceless. So what they need is a space where they feel that they are heard, they are recognized, and they are appreciated. So we as an WOREC, we are working with returning migrant women. We are making them feel that they are all of their experience counts, and so what they are going through is not only because it's not only their soul experience as a person, but it's because of the political. Because there is a politics behind it. So what we are doing is we have a returning women migrant workers in all of our districts, and we are directly working with them, with our staffs who are at the ground, and also we are coordinating from the central, the office in Kathmandu. So we are trying to build a knowledge from the ground, and we are legitimizing their experiences. So when we were trying to make a sense out of what reintegration could be. So we were reaching them. Also, like when we were making the video, we had like, as Bandana already shared, we were doing the feminist participatory action research with them. So we were rigorously involved with them. We were hearing their voices. We were hearing their experience. Sometimes we were so sad because it was really sad even to hear them, but it was really empowering. Like they were at first, like even in our workshop where like women migrant workers from different districts were there, at first they were really hesitant. They were saying, oh, we don't know, because it seems like a big program. We don't know if our voices even count. And we say, yeah, all of your voices counts, all of your experience matters. And we would just try to frame it, but we need to hear from you. And then they were really motivated. They were really excited. And at some point we were like pretty excited to hear their voices. Like, and we talked already about the problems, why they had to go. Why it seems like a choice, but like it is a forced choice, because they don't have like a support system here for their livelihood and this kind of things. So they are migrating, and when they come like back to the society is not ready. They are ready to be integrated, but the question is the society ready for them to be integrated? So yeah, they were talking lots about like the problems for the also about the stigma, about the lack of the recognitions, also of their skills, and lack of resources like to acknowledge their skills, and also for the social and economic reintegrations. I think that's from my side, Didi, for now.
Yeah, thank you, Savita. Actually, I really wanted you to bring out these points, no? What you came out with on reintegration, what we came out on the reintegration, right? So you can just project that one. Anyways, you can do that later on as well. So if you, but you have 1 minute for that, so you can prepare for that. Right, so Alexis, I heard that she's not here. So kind of at this round, I would like to open the floor and then ask our friends who have joined here just to kind of raise questions. If any of you have any question or want to add any comments on this, so please, floor is yours. Yeah, I can see that, okay, different friends from different parts of the world have joined. So if any of you have any question, you want to add something, comment, then please, floor is yours. Okay, I don't see any hands, or have I missed the hands? No. Okay, then I will just kind of, yeah, we are missing two of our speakers. Okay, Nicola Piper has a question like, does the Ministry of Women provide any support and so any interest in these issues, right? Yes, such ministry exists. Yes, Nicola, such ministry exists. Thank you very much for your question. And then, yes, such ministry exists, and it will be really good, Nicola, if you can introduce yourself as well, so that, okay, we will know. Yeah.
Sure. I'd be happy to do that. Thank you so much. And it's great, to have this side event happening and to have, these reports and insights shared with us. Really, really important. And if I may just say, I also really appreciate the comment earlier made by Bandana about unfortunately, the findings showing not an awful lot has changed. And as much as it's depressing, I think it's also extremely important, because we see all this talk about, migration for development and a tool for development, and it's being celebrated in so many ways. And yet we need to be really, really critical and show very clearly, what the obstacles are to actually turn this into a successful experience. Anyway, my question just was, to think about, institutional support. And yes, we know there are very important NGOs like you, WOREC, and many, many others. But what about the government? What about the Ministry of Women? Are they interested? Do they know? Do you share these findings with them? And is this actually turned into a political issue nationally? So is there advocacy happening nationally, given we have now the IMRF and this need to implement the global compact? And of course, gender is always right there. And at least rhetorically, everybody refers to gender responsive policies, blah, 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 blah. But how is this happening in Nepal?
Yeah. Thank you, Nicola, for nailing the issue that everybody talks about gender, and then that is very rhetoric. That kind of in every objective, if we really talk, then okay, gender is very much in, but definitely whether the whole power relation that has been created kind of to keep one group of people up and then another is down, whether that is being addressed or not. This is the real question, right? Yeah, and then regarding the ministry, like I take that opportunity. I will ask the Sandhya afterwards to add on. In Nepal, yes, we have ministry, right? And I know that in South Asia region also we have ministries, like, okay, we takes care of women, and then, but see, at least in Nepal context, what we see that, okay, this labor issue is not even being touched by the women ministry. That is being considered as an issue of labor ministry. And labor ministry will talk about gender, but they will never coordinate, kind of on that. So like, okay, will not coordinate. So kind of this is real problem. What we feel is labor issue has become as add-on issue, and then okay, gender is merely, it refers like women's participation level, so until and unless we say that, okay, without addressing issue right to work and making women's work visible and really counted, we can't even talk about like, okay, kind of gender gets integrated into the whole labor scenario, right? So kind of this is the real thing which I really wanted to bring out. Yeah, but here we have two colleagues from ILO, Neha and then Sandhya Ji, who are working constantly with the ministry, so I would like to request Sandhya Ji, what is your share on this, Sandhya Ji?
Okay.
Or Neha Ji, whoever, but Sandhya Ji.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Renuji, I've already rightly pointed out the tussle between two ministries. So whenever anything regarding women's come, it is the sole responsibility of women's ministry to look after. But then when it comes to labor migration issues, those issues will be pushed to the Ministry of Labor. And with our experience working with Ministry of Labor, they do have some kind of program very much specific to women. But then we need to be very honest and say that the gender lens is missing in a lot of programs that the ministry is upcoming with. And whenever they are talking about foreign migration, most of the time their focus will be for male migrant worker, because if we see the migration trend in Nepal, women's composite very small number of migration trajectory, and the focus of all the programs will be much more inclined to the male migrant worker than to the female migrant worker, which was very much seen during the COVID crisis. And a lot of women, when they choose to migrate to take the migration cycle, because of the restrictive policies back in the country, we have a lot of policies that will restrict women to migrate through the national airport. So they need to take informal routes and migrate through India and other countries, which will make them much more vulnerable, and government doesn't have any kind of safety net for those kind of women migrant workers who actually migrate via India or other country. So that is also one of the challenge. And when we are advocating for the safe and orderly migration of women, we need to also address this issue, because 70 to 80% of women are migrating via India because of the restrictive policies. So the government, on the one hand, they just say like, oh, these women, we are not accountable to these women because they are not under our system. They didn't get the labor permit, and they didn't migrated via Nepal airport. So we are not obliged to work like or to take care of them. But then in the same place, we need to also question them, like, why are these women not migrating through Nepal, and why are they migrating through India or other routes? Because there is this kind of restrictive policies in place. So these two things need to be balanced out when we are working with the ministries. And I really think like women ministry also need to come with certain rules when it comes to migration of women, and also a lot of restrictive policies, including bans and everything. I'll stop here.
Thank you so much, Sandhya ji. Actually, now I will kind of turn towards Bandana, GATW, because I remember GATW has also done a research on all these ban policies and analyzed and then did advocacy with the government. Because kind of, see, Nicola, thank you actually for keep this discussion, bringing the point of advocacy. Like civil society organizations in Nepal and then in South Asia has been advocating on the issue since long, right?
Yeah.
And Nepal is really kind of very, I find like a very nice strange situation. Like one group of people they come and then they ban, and another group of people they come and then they lift the ban, and without even properly planning and then taking it forward. So Bandana, we have kind of, Bandana, you have done research. GATW has done research on ban policy, and then even GATW members, we together, we did advocacy with the government. Would you like to share some of your achievements or frustrations here at this point of time?
Yeah, it's very hard to talk about achievements. There is no achievement, but we try our best, right? So yes, some years ago, the research that was done by the Secretariat, in fact, was in collaboration with ILO. It was an ILO report. So no easy exit. So that was many years ago, and that is the report that focused on Nepal. And in fact, much later, and this is not specific to Nepal only, that seems to be a typical policy response of many states. That, when civil society brings up the problems, the challenges that women migrant workers face, then the policy response seems to be stop them from going. And obviously that doesn't happen, because then it actually puts women more in harm's way. And I remember when we did that targeted advocacy in Nepal so many years ago, the ministry, and in fact the particular minister who was in charge of this thing, he actually read out the whole report, if you remember, and he came to the meeting and he even said that he agrees with the recommendations, but then no steps were taken, and again it resurfaced. And I think last year, or was it year before last, again WOREC and many other civil society members along with ILO had in fact looked at the whole policy, how policies are made and what exactly things are going. So this restrictive, stopping or trying to stop women migrant workers from going, and on the other hand, not creating positive, not creating adequate jobs from them at home, not protecting labor rights, everything together is a kind of recipe for disaster, and it really only makes the lives of women migrant workers far more difficult and dangerous. And that is the reason they go where, and then you talk about irregular migration, you talk about undocumented migration, but what is being done to stop that? Yeah.
Thank you, Bandana. Actually, we are discussing in this event regarding reintegration, but definitely the process of going, if that is not very, very clear, then what we talk about reintegration, right? Yeah. And then that is hindering. Yeah, Nicola, I have seen your hand again. Yeah,
sorry, I hope I'm not taking time from anyone else, but I have seen another hands raised. No, I just, again, to follow on from, everyone's and Bandana and your own comment on how important advocacy is, given, the state of affairs and how things on the ground for women have there has been little improvement. And I was wondering, on this issue of advocacy, I would have two questions. One is, the trade unions in Nepal, my question here is, are they also male-dominated and very patriarchal in terms of their advocacy works? Do they integrate migrant women, migrant return women, or are they also a male-dominated space? And the second question is, in relation to building a broader platform and using certain avenues to push migrant women's rights, as returnees as well as outgoing migrants. And here I was wondering about using CEDAW, because presumably, and apologies for my ignorance, I'm assuming Nepal has ratified CEDAW. Again, it's just because the GCM is obviously non-binding and, there isn't really an obligation.
Yeah.
Could CEDAW be used to push return migrant women's rights issues? And in doing so, is there maybe an alliance with the National Human Rights Commission? I know there was also a side event on National Human Rights Commissions organized, which I unfortunately missed. So I'm not sure if South Asia was part of it. So just I was wondering to what extent maybe CEDAW could be used to push for migrant women's rights vis-a-vis the government. So two questions: the unions and using CEDAW.
Yeah, thank you, Nicola. Wonderful. Yesterday during gender and women discussion, migration network, that's women in migration network, that was the discussion, like, okay, GCM is non-binding, so we need to focus, we need to bring the binding documents like CEDAW, like ESCR, among various others, because ESCR is also one of the tools which is very strong, and then recommendations are very powerful. And WOREC being part of both kind of shadow report preparation process, like so WOREC has, we do on ESCR as well, and then we do on CEDAW as well. These are two documents which we are really pushing, and then we take, and then these are very much integrated into part of WOREC and National Alliance of Women, Women Human Rights Defenders Network. So that is very much used. But we can discuss on, then we will be discussing this, we can take this as a discussion point. But it will be really good to hear from Ashokji, kind of who is part of trade union. Ashok Rana, he's here, who is part of trade union, and at the same time, who was the chair of National Alliance of National Safe Migration Network. So Ashokji, what will be your say on this? Kind of, could you please share with us your view on this? Kind of how advocacy is taking, how trade union is taking the issue forward. Ashokji, are you there? I have seen you. That's why I'm giving you the floor. Ashok Rana. Yeah? Ashokji? Hi, Ashokji. Yeah, Sim, I can see him, but Sim, she is not hearing us. I will come back to Ashokji again. But I'm taking this, exactly on this question. I really want us to discuss a little more. But I want to hear from the field again, another voice from the field, because we have Saraswati Danwar, kind of from eastern part of country, who is working in the ground, who is part of the EPAR, and at the same time who struggles on issue related with the women, kind of when there is no proper policies on ground, and then because she works directly as a frontline defender. So Saraswati will be speaking in Nepali definitely, and then I will translate in bullet. Saraswati, I really want to hear from you and then know that what are the real challenges women face when kind of as we all have been discussing, like when there is no safe policies in ground, right? So yeah.
Okay, धन्यवाद दिदी, सबैलाई नमस्कार। मेन च्यालेन्ज रिइन्टिग्रेसनमा चाहिँ मेन च्यालेन्ज चाहिँ अब फिल्ड लेभलमा के छ भनेर भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ उहाँहरू अब जो विदेशबाट फर्केर आएको महिलाहरू हुनुहुन्छ हैन, उहाँहरू चाहिँ अब फेरि विदेश नजानको लागि चाहिँ उहाँलाई फेरि नेपालमै बस्नको लागि चाहिँ विशेष गरेर उहाँहरूले जुन विदेशमा गर्नुभएको काम छ त्यो कामको चाहिँ यहाँ चाहिँ मान्यता हुँदैन हैन। त्यो कामको त्यो सिपको चाहिँ यहाँनेरि कुनै न परीक्षण हुन्छ न त्यो सिपलाई युज हुने खालको प्रयोग हुने खालको चाहिँ केही पनि त्यस्तो अपर्च्युनिटीहरू चाहिँ लोकल लेभलमा चाहिँ छैन एउटा कुरा हैन। र अर्को कुरा भनेको चाहिँ के छ भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ अहिले पनि त्यही सोशलिस्टिक स्टिग्माकै कुराहरू छ हैन जस्तै अब अलि धेरै पैसा कमाएर आएको महिलाहरू हुनुहुन्छ उहाँलाई गर्ने रेस्पेक्ट अनि जो कोभिडबाट चाहिँ डोमेस्टिक वर्करमा गएर आउनु भएको छ जो चाहिँ अलिकति त्यहाँ गएर पनि उहाँलाई चाहिँ कति समस्या परेर उद्धार गरेर ल्याएको महिलाहरू हुन्छ उहाँलाई हेर्ने दृष्टिकोण चाहिँ अझै चाहिँ के छ भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ अझै पनि त्यो परिवर्तन हुन सकेको चाहिँ छैन उहाँहरूलाई ब्लेम लगाउने अनि परिवारभित्रै उहाँहरूलाई चाहिँ बस्नलाई गाह्रो हुने त्यो समस्या अझै पनि समुदाय लेभलहरुमा चाहिँ छ हैन अनि अर्को कुरा चाहिँ के छ भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ अब प्रोग्रामहरु त आउँछ गभर्नमेन्टले प्रोग्राम ल्याएको छ के प्रधानमन्त्री रोजगार कार्यक्रमहरु देखि सबै खालको प्रोग्रामहरु छ अनि यहाँनेरि मुख्यमन्त्री कार्यक्रमहरु छ परदेशको योजनाहरु पनि छ वैदेशिक रोजगारको तर के हो भने विशेष गरी महिलालाई चाहिँ त्यो उसमा चाहिँ इन्भल्भ नै गराइँदैन के अहिले पनि जति छन् त्यो चाहिँ पुरुषहरुलाई मात्रै दिएको छ के त्यो प्रोग्रामहरु चाहिँ महिलाहरुलाई चाहिँ त्यसरी चाहिँ महिलाहरुलाई चाहिँ इन्भल्भ गराएको छैन र एक्चुअली डाटाहरु पनि छैन के पालिकासँग को महिला जानु भएको छ फर्केर कति अझ एन्ड कोभिडको टाइममा त अझ त्यो अब क्वारेन्टाइनमा राख्नुपर्छ भनेर चाहिँ उहाँहरूले डाटा कलेक्ट गर्नु भएको थियो नत्र भने चाहिँ उहाँहरुसँग त्यस्तो केही पनि मेकानिजम नै छैन कि डाटा कलेक्ट गर्ने कति छन् उहाँहरु कुन देशबाट आछ उहाँहरुसँग कस्तो कस्तो सिप छ भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ अझ पनि उहाँहरूले चाहिँ पालिकाबाट चाहिँ त्यो खालको मेकानिजम चाहिँ अहिलेसम्म पनि गभर्नमेन्टबाट चाहिँ छैन अहिलेसम्म चाहिँ च्यालेन्जहरु चाहिँ हुन्छ
It's always wonderful to hear Saraswati because she is the one who is really different. Yeah, kind of to just to brief what she has said that okay, there are a lot of challenges and one of the real challenges is the work what women do abroad and then come back, that work has not been kind of recognized and then there is no certification or any kind of process. It would have been really good to do the skill test and then say that okay, these are skilled women workers, you know, kind of maybe that would have been created the opportunity. And then yeah, there are different programs. Government is kind of income generating programs, different economic empowerment programs, but women are nowhere integrated into that. And then like, okay, she was giving some example like Prime Minister's program, Chief Minister's, different kind of income generating program, but women are not integrated because that is the kind of the surreal thing is women work is not recognized even the work. So kind of that is not even being considered. And another thing because of the kind of this all ban policies and other things, a lot of women, they have to take the kind of unsafe mode of transportation and with that kind of always at risk of being trafficked, right? So yeah, thank you, Saraswati for bringing this. Now, you know, kind of I got in a chat, very excellent comment from Neha Choudhary, who is from ILO. And I guess that, okay, Neha is going to coordinate one big research on, big program on gender, on gender responsive reintegration process. Yeah, I heard only, I'm not sure. So Neha, would you like to say that what you have written and then say that, okay, why you think so? Neha ji, you are there, I know. Neha Choudhary, Program Officer, ILO.
Thank you, Reintegration, and good morning, good evening to everyone. I'm sorry I don't have my camera on because the internet's been quite iffy. I guess like it's all across the world right now. But then I guess like my first comment in the chat box was in response to your question, Nicola and Reintegration had posted my colleague Sandhya. When we talk about like government-led programs and policy formation, what we see is that what Reintegration said earlier, the fact that women's work is not recognized and women remain invisible. So the needs of women workers in general, and like I think when you become a migrant, then it adds another layer of another barrier in terms of maybe accessing or being visible within the government structure. And like Sandhya pointed out before, we see that there is no coordination or coherence within the ministries, let alone like when we talk about programs and so on and so forth, right? So what we see is gender being largely absent when it comes to formation of policies and programs, which basically means it ends up excluding a large chunk of workers. And the fact that women workers are overrepresented in the informal sector in itself also shows to what extent government is working towards recognizing women's work. And I think the second comment that I posed in the comment box was in response to Nicola's question on advocacy. And what we have experienced in a sense is that there, even within the civil society, UN organizations, international organizations, development partners, so on and so forth, that there is a sort of lack of uniform understanding in terms of how women's migration needs to be governed. And there are various stands, whereas like whether we take a gender sensitive stance or whether we take a gender responsive stance, or do we just take a protectionist stance? And this sort of lack of understanding, at least amongst some of the key stakeholders who are actually flag bearers of advocacy, can create a massive hindrance in terms of how policies are formulated. And just to sort of correct on the point, like we are not working on a gender responsive reintegration policy, but then we're trying to sort of work towards a much more consolidated advocacy for gender responsive migration policy as a whole, which covers the entire migration cycle. So that, what you said, Reintegration, earlier, as to the fact that if we want to look at reintegration, how why women move, and just sort of address some of the structural issues. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Neha. Thank you for correcting me, because that's why I told her that kind of I heard. Yeah, since Ashokji is not here, I see Chiranjeevi ji here. He's from the Safe Migration Network. Chiranjeevi ji, would you like to kind of bring your views and then how advocacy is going on, and then whether civil society, I take that point, I agree, because this is my 30 years of work in this area, say that, okay, even we among civil society members, kind of stakeholders, we are not very clear when we talk about gender, what we mean by gender responsive planning policies and other things. So kind of a lot of conceptual clarity requires at our end as well, right? And then NNSM is trying very hard to bring those, I guess. So Chiranjeevi ji, would you like to add on your views on how advocacies are being taken, and then what you really see that any hindrances? Chiranjeevi ji, yeah, floor is yours. Oh, I don't see. I think that, okay, these friends from NNSM somehow kind of have little difficulties with the network, or what? Is anyone, because I don't know all of you there. So if anyone from the self-migration network is there, so please, now floor is yours. Yeah. I have asked Ashokji, I have asked Chiranjeevi ji, but I'm not getting response from both of them. So any of you, please, friends, I don't know, I'm sorry for the ignorance. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Since I don't hear from them, yes, any other questions from the floor, so that we can, yeah, or any intervention from the floor, so that we can compile together and then take it forward. Any intervention from the floor, or anything from from the WOREC team as well? Okay, Nehaji, you are raising the hand, so please.
Renu, I guess I just want to pose a question to you and Bandana, as well as people who have had extensive experience and a long history of working in this area. As to so if we I know I think that we're all in agreement in terms of how reintegration or sustainable reintegration as a concept is redundant, right? But then, so what can we use instead, as someone who's going to be working when we provide any form of policy recommendations, or even in terms of providing technical support to advocacy initiatives? Like, so what are the experiences in other countries in the region per se, or what can we work towards then if we are sort of sidelining that whole, or reformulating the concept of reintegration? Thanks.
I think it's kind of very difficult to hear. Yeah, yeah. I can't hear. Like, can you hear me? Please.
Yes, we can
Friends.
hear you, but not to Bandana.
Yeah, Bandana, we can't hear you.
No, I wasn't speaking. I couldn't hear what Neha was
Neha.
saying. I heard very unclear, but Neha, can you perhaps just put your question in the chat? I couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
I only heard my name.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, Neha.
Yeah, actually, okay, she's putting on the chat.
Yes,
so,
yes,
kind of till Neha puts the question here, please get ready. Anyone wants to speak? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so, kind of till Neha's question is ready, I really wanted to respond to to come back to advocacy again,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so just before coming here to New York, we kind of discussed with this time, we took different approach. We went to the law minister, kind of requesting like, okay, you need to integrate a law ministry and then labor ministry kind of work together. But we think that, okay, we need to bring foreign ministry and then we need to bring women ministry as well together. Because kind of even among the civil society groups, what we are finding, we are also very much kind of work is very much projectized and compartmentalized, right? So kind of these issues are also hindering us. This is kind of my response to Nicola's actually, kind of why advocacy is not, advocacy is there, we are advocating, this is already 20 plus years we are bringing these issues out, but somewhere, somehow, kind of, I will say, please, without any hesitation, I will say that, okay, sometimes kind of the project approach also takes real politics from advocacy away. So it's kind of, these are some of the things that we need to be we are finding as a hindrance, and then we need to deal for the future advocacy plans. Bandana, now question is there. So
Okay, yeah. So thank you, Neha. I think we like, as we have been discussing since the beginning of this session, there are problems with the term. The term does not, in fact, address the reality, the lived experiences of women who migrate and return. However, I mean, as civil society activists and, as we talk to our trade unionists, and also policymakers, we need to understand that there are limitations. At the same time, I would not recommend using another term, because we know what happens to these terms. We, in the beginning, I remember WOREC was one of the earliest organizations that had started the safe migration booths, the safe migration centers in different parts of the country, where WOREC had programs and works with the communities. And now we know what safe migration is also a term that can be, it can be. So when these concepts, and we know that also with regard to trafficking and all this. So, when these concepts are kind of put in the cage of words, the words can be co-opted. And so we may create certain words or certain terminology with certain politics in mind, and those words can be co-opted. So I'm not advocating for new terminology here. So we need to understand that these are limitations. And again, going back to advocacy and particularly listening to Renu, to Nicola, I would say that our advocacy needs to happen at multiple levels. And our advocacy, first of all, I think the kind of work that WOREC and many strong organizations are already doing, working closely with women in the communities, both migrant workers and local women, and really building up a movement a labor rights movement from ground up. And that work has begun. It will take a lot of energy, but that's where we need to put the energy in. Because as the little video clips showed, and as Saraswati, who has been working in communities for such a long time, as she spoke, there is strength there, and women are ready. Women are speaking, and women are sharing their experiences and also showing a lot of energy to join the movement. So what is it as civil society actors, what is it that we can do to build the movement from ground up? That work has begun, it needs to be strengthened. Secondly, at the other level, with the policy level, looking at, let's say, yes, CEDAW GR26 is there, GR26, we can report on that, and how do we make use of CEDAW, how do we make use of other sort of binding frameworks, and even, like IMRF, this is the first IMRF. So we should not, because we have put in so much of energy in the GCM, even if it is non-binding, I think we need to hold states accountable at multiple levels. So I think these are the two-pronged thing that needs to happen. And I mean, I can only say that the work has begun, but there's a long way to go. And to understand that, because as we know, say for example, in the anti-trafficking movement also we were talking about reintegration. And that reintegration was focusing a lot on psychosocial care, like looking at this thing. It was not looking at the labor issues at all at that time. And then in the migrant thing, we are focusing a little bit, we are talking a little bit about labor thing, but there are no actual concrete action to address the labor market and the weaknesses in the labor market, weaknesses in labor rights protection. So that's, I think, as long as our advocacy agenda is clear, we can just sort of, just stay with the words, and we know that it is limited, and go on with that.
Yeah, thank you, Bandana. I fully agree that, okay, maybe we should not go for the another term, because that's what they understand, they recognize, and that is already there. But we need to make that that term rich by adding our experiences, and that's what we all are doing. And then there is no other alternative, at least from my angle and my experience, say that, okay, rather than building the movement from below on right to work, and right to work, and then workers' right? So kind of WOREC from this 8th March, and actually we have started a national campaign on right to work, and then workers' right for women, kind of trying to say that, okay, look, women's work is a work, and then that needs to be kind of recognized as a work, and then they need to be protected as the as a workers' right. Kind of this whole campaign is part of, and then a lot of community-based organization, a lot of community-based women, and then a lot of kind of friends are joining hands, which is really, and then progressing. And then I'm so happy to share that in local election, couple of WHRDs who advocated for them are getting elected as a mayors also. So we can see maybe kind of this dynamics can get changed. Let's hope for that, right? And yeah, thank you definitely kind of for this all intervention, and thank you Neha Ji for bringing this kind of issue out. I can see one question from Swarna Kumar Jha. Okay, so if you want to, your question is here, or your comment is here, if you want to bring that out, kind of Swarna national network of safe migration, then could you please add your views here, over here. Swarna ji, floor is yours. Okay, I don't hear the voice. Hey, people, they don't want to say, or Swarna ji, you are there? You want to add, or you are audible? Can we hear? Okay. Yes. No. Yeah. Then like okay. Then now anyone wants to add? No. So now maybe this is another term, right? So another term. Like kind of we know the issue. We told that okay, a lot of issues are there, terms are there, and we have opportunities at that, right? So what we feel that at least my feeling is no, we can have a lot of apprehension, we can have a lot of discussions, and we can have a lot of reservation, but at the same time, what we see that this is the whole GCM discussion and SDG goals and then DCM goals. This two needs to be integrated, and then if we and kind of brought somehow these binding documents also together. If we bring all these things together, it gives a lot of spaces for us to say that okay, what we want to say, and then to advocate what we want to advocate for. Right. On this, kind of, I will just ask again the same speakers to kind of put your views on Sandhya, what you really feel that, okay, what our movement should take forward to make kind of proper reintegration, let's use the term, reintegration of women proper in South Asian context, right? Kind of dignified reintegration or holistic reintegration in South Asian context based on an experience and women WIF program. So kind of Sandhya, floor is yours now. Yeah, how to move forward? What should be our step to take this issue forward? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rain. It's a very relevant question, and I think it's very important in this discussion as well. So I would like to talk about two important things. The first, like as we have already discussed, and also we have seen or listened from the video, and also the narratives from Saraswati ji, who has been working in the community. All of them have the same kind of narrative when it comes to the labor market situation and how women are treated in that market, and how like unemployment, underemployment is also one of the factor, a driving factor of migration. So I think it is very important to focus all our advocacy on to bring the change in the policies that are directly and indirectly related to creating a safer space for women to work, also to create the decent working conditions, and increasing and creating the job opportunity for women's, especially for women, and also transitioning informal work to the informalization. So that will also help women, migrant worker, and also women who are already in the labor force to achieve a decent environment and to secure their labor rights. Saying that, I would also like to mention that as we know, the underemployment and unemployment are main main drivers of migration. It means that the employment intensive policies or large social protection programs are lacking or need to be significantly upscaled. So our advocacy need to be also targeted on those kind of policies that need to be reformulated. And regarding unemployment in South Asia, for example, there is no evidence of intensive employment program being recently implemented as the at the needed scale. We do have some program like Prime Minister Employment Program, and Saraswati also mentioned that in when she was saying giving her statement. We have those kind of program, but those programs have not generated the job needed to reduce the growth of unemployment and underemployment in recent years, and not to speak of the growth of unemployment after the pandemic. So that mismatch is also one of the things. And when programs like this are being formulated, the ground realities need to be taken into consideration. The voice of the ground need to be reflected in the policy. I think that is one of the lacking thing when we are working for women returnee migrant worker, not only in the reintegration but also how to create a decent working environment for them. So I think that is also one of the things. The next is understanding the written itself is also very important when we are talking about this. So written is important since it will often have an impact on the process of reintegration once back in the origin country. So written is also frequently perceived as a failure and has a social stigma associated with it. So a lot of women might have a lot of problem, and they will also have certain problem from the community. They will have a lot of stigmatization that they need to face, and that will also create another level of hurdle for them. So I think it is very important to address this a particular aspect, and for addressing this aspect, it is necessary that local community is fully involved in the reintegration process, and that the measures foreseen for the returnees are not seen as a privilege, but that should be open to all the workers, because if we have a specific program just for the returnees, there might be a community conflict. We have seen that when when we are working in the community, we have seen if there is a specific program just for the community, like returnee migrant worker, other people who also want to enter in the job market or labor market, there might be some kind of tussle between them. So we need to be very careful balancing that out as well. So, and then my last point will be reintegration policies and framework should be coherent with the relevant national policies. For example, when we are making policies for education, policies relating to training, skillings, employment, social protection, these all in many origin, these all need to be coherent. So when we are talking about reintegration or talking about migration, not just migration related legislation, but also this different legislation which will have an impact on the life of the returnee migrant or also the migrant worker need to be also revised and made coherent. So, and what we have seen is like in many origin country, employment and training related policies do not cover returnee migrant workers and their specific needs. So that should also be taken into consideration when we are coming up with such programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandhya ji. I have seen two hands. One is Nicola's and then another Sophie, right? Nicola, you wanted to add something, and then I will come to Sophie. Yeah.
But Sophie hasn't spoken yet.
Yeah.
Maybe Sophie wants to come first.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Sophia. Yeah, would you please? Yeah.
Nicola, please go ahead. You were definitely first, but I have just a quick question that I can. Okay,
Yeah.
then I will. Thank you for all the panelists. It's been a very, very interesting conversation for me, and thank you also for sharing the report. I will definitely read that. One question that came into mind, you talked a lot about advocacy and how the government needs to consider all these things that are missing, bringing gender and labor together somehow. But I was wondering, are you aware of how does it, are there any civil society grassroots projects, programs happening, like supporting or assisting the reintegration of these women? I understand that IOL is doing something and that you really want to push the government to be more forward-looking in this respect, but are there any civil society, or how do these initiatives look like? I'm pretty interested in how it's happening on the ground and what civil society is doing in this respect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sophie. It's very interesting question, and I would love to answer, and then one of our field-based person will also answer. But before that, maybe Nicola, your question, so that I can integrate this one. Or should I go for that first?
Go for that first, because my question will direct the conversation in a slightly different
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nicola. Sophie, actually, yes, there are civil society organizations who are trying, and then like WOREC is one among them. So kind of WOREC works all over the country, and then we are trying, you know. But WOREC being a women right, and then we call them feminist organization, we try to take all the power relation issues. Now, that's why in one hand, we are supporting the community for the reintegration, but at the same time, whatever issue comes out, we are trying to push that and then bring at the government level, you know, so that, okay, this gap gets bridged. So that is being done. And then another, like, okay, different other civil society organizations are also kind of returnee migrant right organizations are also in field. So it's not that, okay, there is a vacuum. There are different civil society organizations. organizations, right, who are taking. But the issue is why we are pushing government is, when this works comes at the community level, really people find a lot of difficulty. I will really request my team member, WOREC team member, like, okay, Ishwari is here, who works at another district, where while integrating, kind of starting reintegration or support program, what problems they have to face, a lot of stigma and another thing. So Ishwari, floor is yours. You speak in Nepali, I will be translating. So kind of के समस्या छ पुनर्स्थापनामा महिलाहरूलाई अनि लान्छना कसरी लाग्छ भनेर भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ अलिकति ईश्वरी, you want to kind of, do you want to bring that out? And then what we have just circulated our research report as well, so you can find that one. Yeah, Ishwari, are you there? Nava Kalpana, timi bhaye pani huncha. Ishwari is there, but I can see her, but I don't. Yeah, maybe connections or something. Yeah. Okay, I don't know why I can't hear them. If they come, I will give the floor. But this is the issue, Sophie. Kind of there are. And as I discussed earlier also, kind of reintegration program, our problem is, at least what I am facing, and then my experience says is, a lot of like, okay, we say that, okay, kind of, my project is only for the three areas, kind of, but in reintegration, working on the 3 areas or in a small area only, that cannot bring the real result, kind of, until and unless you bring that issue up and then highlight and then kind of start engaging with the government. Because no matter how much resources we pump in as a civil society group, it's ultimately the state who has to come with the policies and then proper programs in order to make that get realized by every single woman in their life. And then for us as a kind of Nepali women, I will say that for the South Asian women, this is a whole issue of stigma, and somewhere I feel, since Bandana is also here, so I take this opportunity even to kind of look at ourselves also. Somewhere I feel that, okay, anti-trafficking movement has done so much harm that that in context of migration, even, all women who come without money in a desperate situation as a returned migrant worker, immediately they get labeled as, okay, maybe you are returned from the brothel, you were a sex worker, and then whole difficulties start. That was one of the voices in our 5 voices as well. Because this stigma, kind of, because women's body has been controlled by patriarchy, women's work has been controlled by patriarchy, and women's even identity as a worker has been controlled by patriarchy. So kind of, and without dealing with that, kind of reintegration programs becomes impossible. That's what we have been talking about. Civil society organizations are trying hard, even within that constraint to work. But at the same time, civil society organizations feel very important to make government responsible on these areas, to really to come very strongly saying that hey, women are worker, and then women's body has been controlled by women only. This is a kind of, and then their sexuality. No one has right to talk about how they were and where they went. So all these issues, I think, should go hand in hand. That what I feel. I hope I could come with the answer of what the question you have raised.
Yeah,
Nicola,
you did.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for your comprehensive answer.
Yeah, Nicola, please.
Yeah. Well, in the throughout this session, we've also touched upon the issue of skills, right? And in the clip you showed in the beginning, some of the women were also referring to how what they learned is not being recognized, is not recognized in Nepal, hence reintegration on the basis of the experience they've made abroad is not leading to anything really. And on this issue of skills, I was wondering, in these global policy fora, whether it's GCM or the GFMD, a lot of talk is also these days around these ideas around global skills partnerships. And I know in your region, countries like Japan and Korea, they offer traineeships, for foreign migrant workers, from your part of the region as well as Southeast Asia. And on the gender issue, I was wondering, and advocacy, are you also advocating, for example, for a gender quota to make sure Nepali women get their fair share in these skills development programs abroad? That's of course before they are reintegrating, before they return. And when they return, then I was wondering, is there any collaboration maybe with, I don't know, universities or colleges or training centers to develop some sort of qualification system so that women can actually get, you know, and form a certification on the basis of the experience they've gained, you know, to have something to show for, and to push in Nepali society the idea of women workers are fully recognized workers, right? They come with skills.
Thank you, Nicola. I will come to that point, but before me, I would like to request Bandana, you know, to say that what will be your response on this, Bandana, because kind of from the South Asian perspective, let's say that, okay, we are working with OCOP in Bangladesh or in Nepal, and then with the SEVA, you know, and then basically SEVA and then OCOP, a lot on the skill formulation and the skill generation part. So kind of my point will be, what should be done in order to make that happen? What Nicola is asking to kind of as a need, and then what we have been felt since long. Vandana.
I think it's a very good point that Nicola has brought out, and I know that skilling programs are there and are happening, but whether those skills, you know, the skills trainings are being matched along with employment guarantee. What we need is an employment guarantee. So if the employment guarantee schemes are not there, say for example, okay, you know, the national employment guarantee scheme that India has, it's not sufficient, it's not adequate, but it is a beginning. Yeah. But like, you know, successive governments or the current government has made it very, very weak. But that is something, you know, by now the national employment guarantee scheme should have gotten stronger, should have reached the urban areas, and other countries in other parts of this thing could have created something, you know, like, so along with skilling, the employment guarantee scheme need to go hand in hand. And then in the context of migration, if we are seeing, yes, the point that you brought out, Nicola, it's sort of, you know, the skills recognition and the kind of, you know, opportunities for skills upgradation and recognition is extremely important. So I think that this is definitely an area we need to look at more closely. Yeah. I do see, I mean, Renu would know more, but I do see different kinds of skilling programs going on. But again, like Sandhya was saying, how is there a coherence in all these? Or is, you know, somebody thinks of skills and then they start some skilling program, somebody else is thinking of something else and they're doing it. So that not only policy coherence, but also action coherence. These kind of steps that is also needed.
Thank you, Bandana. I very much like not only policy coherence, there should be action coherence. Actually, you know, Nicola, to be kind of specific for Nepal issue, definitely, Sandhya ji, I will come back to you. Kind of Nepal issue, there are different programs on the skill generation, and there are relation, kind of a lot of effort has been made, especially by Swiss, let's say that, okay, from SDG, the Helveta's programs on skill and other things, right? But again, I will say that, okay, as a civil society member, I find lack of coherence, definitely. And then another thing, very much projectized. You know, my project is in these two districts, of particularly these two areas. You know, that is not going to change the situation, you know, until and unless we come out with a bigger sense, like, okay, employment generation program, and in Nepal also government has started Prime Minister's employment generation program. But where are the women there, you know? And so all these areas, it's not that we are not advocating or these are not being done. We are doing that, but what I feel that a much more concentrated efforts is required. movement. There is no alternative of the movement building, from the workers, from the women workers from below, and then where we civil society group can facilitate a role of catalyzer, what I will say, right? So, but Sandhya, you also know kind of more, and you have done on the skill building part. So yeah, I have seen your hand. So please, yeah.
On the, like, I would like to answer Nicola's specific question on how like this technical skills program from Japan and other countries, our women have certain quotas on that. So for this kind of program, there is no quota for women. And for example, like when we are sending a traineeship program to Japan, it's like the number is very limited. They have offered 1,500 people they will be sending, and the process is very, very lengthy, where it is very difficult for women to even come to that process. And when government is doing this kind of partnership with the receiving country, it doesn't incorporate the employer's pay model. So the person who is migrating need to pay a like hefty amount of money, which is again very, very, very difficult for a lot of women to incorporate in such programs. So that kind of policy incoherence is also there. So it is very difficult for women to actually be part of those kind of specific technical program. And in regards to skilling, we do have some program related to recognition of prior learning. So government will take a certain kind of test, and they will provide you the certificate of your prior learning, and skill recognition is also being taken force. But then that is not done. Like a lot of women can't benefit from them, because most of the women tend to go for domestic work, and when they come back, there is no skilling test for recognizing your domestic work related knowledge. So that is also another technical lacuna within the skilling, also specifically for women. And now what is happening is a lot of employer, as Bandana already rightly mentioned, that even if we are giving skill, is that skill or the certification that government of Nepal is providing is been accepted by the country of destination employers or not? Is that as per the standard or not? So that is also one of the questions we need to take into consideration. And there a lot of discussion has been flowed, and then few of the employers want to invest. They want to come to Nepal and invest on the skilling sector, and to train the migrant workers who can actually take the skills and go back to the country of destination and work for a certain desired skills. So those kind of conversation has also come up, which is not yet done anything in that regards. And lastly, we are also in the process of having this standard skill testing and standard skill certification for South Asia region, because we can see, like, if there is a ban in Bangladesh, a lot of demand will be there from Nepali worker, and if there is a ban in Nepal, then India will have a lot of demands from because they need to fulfill those demands and all. So what the discussion is, like, to have a uniform skill testing around across South Asia, so that we will have a similar kind of negotiation when we are sending our migrant worker in the destination country. So those kind of discussion are taking place, but then nothing significant has achieved as of now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sandhya ji. Discussions are taking place, but nothing significant has been done. But yeah, things are progressing, definitely, yes. And yeah, Ishwari from the ground, who is at the bank, she is back. So, and she wanted to share a few things. So Ishwari ji, yeah, kind of floor is yours. Yeah, Ishwari will speak in Nepali, I guess. I will be translating.
सबैजनालाई नमस्कार। हाम्रो रिटर्न माइग्रेन्ट वर्करहरूलाई कस्तो छ भन्दाखेरि आइसकेपछि उहाँहरूले यहाँबाट जाँदाखेरि नि पनि कतिवटा सिपहरू चाहिँ नसिकिकन जाने, सिप सिक्नलाई नै एउटा वातावरण नभएको, हैन, त्यस्तो अवस्था छ भने गइसकेपछि र त्यहाँ गएर उहाँहरूले सिक्नुहुन्छ। त्यहाँ गइसकेपछि कतिवटा त्यो सामानहरू यहाँको भन्दा त्यहाँको फरक हुने भएको हुनाले त्यही नै पनि दुःख पाएको कुराहरू उहाँहरूले अनुभव गर्नुहुन्छ एउटा। र त्यहाँ सिकेर आइसकेपछि फेरि त्यही अनुसारको सिप अनुसार फेरि नेपालमा काम नपाउने, त्यो चाहिँ एकदमै च्यालेन्जको कुरा। र यहाँ आइसकेपछि उहाँलाई कस्तो हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि जाँदाखेरि यहाँबाट ऋण लिएर गएको त्यस्तो हुन्छ, अनि त्यही ऋण खोजेर गएको पैसा पनि त्यहाँ कमाएको फर्काइसके यहाँ परिवारलाई हेर्नुपर्ने, त्यही पैसा पनि श्रीमानहरूलाई दिनुपर्ने, बच्चा बच्चीको फीहरू तिर्नुपर्ने, सासू ससुरालाई हेर्न पर्ने हुन्छ नि। जब फर्किँदाखेरि उहाँहरूसँग पैसा नै नभइराखेको त्यो च्यालेन्ज छ, जसको कारणले यहाँ आइसकेपछि फेरि उहाँहरूले के गर्ने, अब कसरी फेरि त्यो समुदायमा फर्किने र कसरी काम गर्ने हुन्छ। उहाँहरूसँग आफ्नो यो ऊ पनि भूमि पनि नै नभएको नाममा हुन्छ, उहाँहरूको नाममा त्यो भूमिहीन नै भएको कतिवटा अवस्थाहरू पनि छ। त्यसको कारणले गर्दाखेरि आइसकेपछि फेरि के गर्ने र कहाँनिर जोडिने भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ त्यो च्यालेन्ज छ भने, अर्को कुरा चाहिँ अब त्यसलाई कसरी सरकारले त्यसलाई समेटेर लग्ने र कसरी गर्ने भन्ने कुरा पनि योजना चाहिने छैन। त्यसको कारणले गर्दाखेरि पनि गाह्रो, फेरि जान कि त वैदेशिक रोजगारमै जान पर्ने हुन्छ, फेरि ऋण खोजेर नै जाने, त्यो ऋणमै डुबिराखेको अवस्था, त्यो प्रकारको च्यालेन्ज छ भने। अर्को चाहिँ आइसकेपछि चाहिँ उहाँहरूलाई फेरि समाजले हेर्ने दृष्टिकोण चाहिँ एकदमै फरक। त्यहाँ जाँदाखेरि कमाएको पैसा पनि यिनीहरूले चाहिँ राम्रो नियतले कमाएन, नराम्रो काम गर्यो होइन, अनि त्यस्तो खालको काम गरेर चाहिँ आएको पैसा हो। यिनीहरूलाई चाहिँ बाहिर गएर आइसकेको महिलाहरू चाहिँ सबै बिग्रेको हुन्छ, ठिक हुँदैन यिनीहरूको नियत चाहिँ भनेर फेरि उनीहरूलाई चाहिँ त्यो समाजमा त्यो व्यक्तिहरूले हेर्ने दृष्टिकोण नै, अनि तिनीहरूलाई एप्रोच गर्ने कुराहरू नै पनि फरक कुराले चाहिँ त्यो प्रकारले हेरिरहेको, त्यो प्रकारको च्यालेन्जिङहरू चाहिँ देखिन्छ।
Dhanyavad Ishwari. Thank you so much, Ishwari. Actually, she has raised the point what we have been discussing, like, okay, yeah, this whole issue of skill, not having a skill when they migrate, and then after coming back also, not having proper skill testing mechanism, and then kind of recognizing their work as a work. So this is one of the issues which is creating really problem, really challenge for women to get, to build kind of their space in the society. Right, and then social stigma is another thing which really makes them, and then kind of carry family burden. Kind of from there they send money, and then they end up without any money, and then when they come and then start do something, there is no kind of proper support mechanism in order to get loan, and then they start the business. So these are the things which are creating hindrances for women to get reintegrated. So thank you. Actually, what we feel that, yeah, we have almost discussed, and then, yeah, we have some time left, but we can definitely move, we missed two of our speakers. So if anyone doesn't have anything to add, then I would take your permission to conclude. So if anyone has any question, then please raise your hand. Question or any intervention or anything to add. Yeah, I don't see any hands. So let me kind of take permission to kind of bring out the points which we have been discussing. Like, okay, definitely we talked that, yeah, although we might not like the term reintegration, and there are a lot of political connotations related with that this has been already accepted and agreed by government, and then we have evidences in our course of our advocacy or activism that, okay, how the term you kind of start being started by feminism gets co-opted, and then made it kind of totally look like different, and then totally end up with a different meaning. So that's kind of, and Bandana very clearly gave example of safe migration, kind of. Yes, thank you, Bandana, for pointing out, like WOREC is one of the institutions actually in Nepal, and then I think in South Asia, where we started our safe migration initiative, booths and other things. But now this whole safe migration concept is being unsafe for really kind of migrant who are in need of work. So that's why, in order to not to repeat the same kind of, I will not say that not to repeat the same mistake, but rather kind of getting from that experience, yeah, let's take the reintegration and then the term, and then try to make that more women's friendly, and then bring out all these stigma kind of issues which are really hindering the integration process. And then one of them is social stigma and non-recognition. Another is non-recognition of women's work as a work. and women as a worker. So kind of recognition of women's work, and then stigma is very much related with women's sexuality. And then the way how society look on women's sexuality. These are two areas where we really need to unpack and then go deeper if we really want to create a space for women who need to be need to create the space in the society in order to get reintegrated. I think these are the areas where we need to focus. And for that, couple of things gives us opportunity. One opportunity is definitely this whole GCM and SDG discussion on that. Kind of if we unpack the goals related with this, and I take that, okay, goal 21 of GCM, objective 21 of GCM, where a lot of issues has been talked about, a lot of talk has been said that, okay, we will facilitate the sustainable reintegration process. And what exactly sustainable reintegration means, I think these are the areas where we need to push. And then we have discussed a lot on what exactly for the South Asian women the sustainable reintegration will mean, kind of the whole making women's work as a work primary. Right, and then integrated those advocate for women being treated as a worker or women's work, but recognized within different kind of national employment guarantees program, and promoting, promoting activities or promoting advocacy campaigns or engaging with advocacy campaigns on skill generation and skill testing, and then skill generation, skill testing, and still certifying, whatever we want to call, coherent with the employment generation program, because these two things should go hand in hand. And definitely kind of advocate for different civil society organizations to start the kind of to help, to coordinate, to strengthen the whole reintegration needs of women. But at the same time, the issue generated in that process needs to be advocated, and making government responsible to create larger reintegration program from women's perspective is one of the key in these areas. So yeah, and then definitely I think that idea was super from Nicola, that okay, maybe collaborating with the academic institution and then kind of discussing with the academic institution to bring these out and then create skill generation programs. That is there, but that needs to be strengthened and that needs to be taken forward. And definitely kind of organization like ILO, which is coming with a very gender responsive migration policies program and the work in freedom program and other things. I think these are the areas, kind of whole workers' right movement, how to ensure, how to take forward, and then how to strengthen that needs to focus. But definitely a lot of psychosocial issue needs to be addressed, because what we are finding, like, okay, women, even men, but today we are talking about women, when they are in process of migration or when they are in process of coming back, a lot of mental burden they have to carry, a lot of psychological burden they have to carry. So a lot of kind of support program on psychosocial issues, support on psychosocial domains are very much needed, and a lot of works is required for the trade union, to kind of work with the trade union, because what we really find that is experienced, I think, everywhere in South Asia, it's very difficult to break patriarchal barriers within trade unions as well. It's not that, okay, they are not changing, but a lot of needs to be done in order to make that really felt by all of us. And definitely kind of need to discuss on integrated policy, kind of reintegration should be part of all policies, whether that is on workers' right or that is on safe migration, whatever you want to call, or whether that is a really gender equality policies as well, because gender equality policy is the basis, and we talk about workers' right violation, we talk about difficult reintegration process and other things. These are only the outcomes, kind of we have to hammer on root causes. and there is definitely a lot of power imbalances are there. We need to hammer those, and then there CEDAW and CEDAW and the ESCR and then other binding binding documents can be very strong tool for us to take it forward. I thank you very much, friends, for your intervention, support, and very engaging discussion. We missed two our speakers, but anyway, we managed it. Thank you so much. I very much appreciate. And let's be in touch. We need to do a lot of work together. And yeah, it was excellent 2 hours. Thank you so much. Thank you, friends. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. Wait, मैले चाहिँ राम्ररी हेरेको छैन। I'm so sorry, I started to speak here.